In section 9, we're going to discuss elimination reactions, which are related and in competition with nucleophilic substitution reactions. The first elimination reaction that we're going to discuss is what we call the bimolecular elimination reaction, or the E2 reaction. Just like with SN2, the E2 reaction is distinguished primarily by its mechanism. The mechanism works something like this. We have a substrate, and when we look at the substrate, we're going to be concerned with the leaving group, the alpha carbon, but also the carbon adjacent, directly connected to the alpha carbon, which we will call the beta carbon, and a hydrogen that is attached to the beta carbon, which we will call a beta hydrogen. The reactant in this case is going to be similar to a nucleophile, but it is going to make a bond to a hydrogen instead of to a carbon. So we will call it a base. And in fact, it's my preference to represent bases with this symbol, the letter B, and a lone pair of electrons. So in the mechanism, the base starts by grabbing the beta hydrogen. Now the beta hydrogen then is going to have to let go of the pair of electrons that's in the carbon to hydrogen bond. Those pair of electrons, in theory, could flow down onto the carbon, but instead what they do is they flow toward the leaving group, and they actually form a second bond between the alpha and beta carbon. Now, in order to form that second bond, we have to remove a bond from the alpha carbon, and so the leaving group bond is pushed out onto the leaving group. So you can see it's sort of a sequence of 3 arrows, from the base to the hydrogen, from the bond to between alpha and beta, and then from the bond onto the leaving group. 1, 2, 3. The result of this, if you trace out this, is that now we will have a bond between the base and the hydrogen. We will have a second bond making a double bond between alpha and beta, and the leaving group will be detached with a pair of electrons on it. Now, this, like the SN2 reaction, is a synchronous reaction. It all occurs in one step. Therefore, the rate law looks like this. It has the rate constant, the concentration of substrate to the first power, the concentration of base to the first power. So we would say it's bimolecular, second order reaction, and that's why we call this the E2 reaction. Now, when we do the E2 reaction, it turns out that many substrates will have more than one beta carbon. If those different beta carbons also have hydrogens, then we have the possibility of reacting at several different locations in the same molecule. And those products that would be produced would be constitutional isomers of each other. So if we look at this example, we have 4 carbons, the bromine is attached to the second carbon, and then I've highlighted hydrogens on the 2 adjacent beta carbons. We're going to use in this case a base. Now, this is a typical set of conditions that we will see for E2 elimination reaction. Sodium plus, OET minus, written as an ionic salt, and then underneath it, or along with it, ETOH, which represents ethanol. Now, ethanol is the solvent, and in most cases we're not really concerned with that. But we'll see later that solvent does play an impact, does play a role in deciding which reaction occurs. And because this is an ionic salt, the sodium will be a spectator, and our true base is going to be ethyl O-. If we look then, we have the option of removing the beta 1 hydrogen, which would be right here. Now, of course, the leaving group would come off also, and we would form a new double bond from beta 1 to alpha. So we would get this product. Or we could remove the beta 2 hydrogen. Again, the leaving group coming off and forming a new double bond from beta 2 to alpha, which would be this product. So we call these two products possible products. These are all possibilities for this reaction. Okay? And if we look at these possible products in particular, we can see that these have a relationship. They are constitutional isomers. The same formula, they have a different connectivity because the double bond is located at a different place in the chain. Now, when we have different possible products that are constitutional isomers, we call those regioisomers. So these are regioisomers of our product. Now, most of the time when there are more than one, there are regioisomers. So there's more than one possible product of constitutional isomers. What we actually get is a mixture of these two products. And this is typically reported as percentages. And so you might have, 20% of this, 80% of that, whatever, okay? And this is another example of the reasons why it becomes very difficult to sort of balance organic chemistry reactions, because we're not getting only one product, we're getting more than one possible product, all starting from the same set of reactants. And so when we have a mole of our reactant, we will have, if we have a mixture of these products, less than a mole of this, less than a mole of that. And so it becomes complicated to try to come up with coefficients for this. Instead, normally what we do is we just don't balance it, we just write percentages. When we have this situation then, we often will have what we call a preferred product. A preferred product is produced in a larger amount than any other possible products. When a reaction has preferred products, selectivity is occurring. And so since this is selecting between possible regioisomers, we call this regioselectivity. Typically, we look for, in theory, anything greater than 50-50 or different from 50-50 is going to have a preferred product. But usually we like to have 70 or 80% of one to really say it's preferred. Otherwise, we just say we get a mixture. In this particular example, we expect more than 90% of the product to be this one, where the beta 2 hydrogen has been removed. And so we would call that the preferred product of this reaction. And we're going to talk about how we would know that that is the preferred product and the rule for deciding that it is the preferred product. To understand why the second product, the beta 2 product, was the preferred product, we have to first talk a little bit about language that's used to discuss the general structure of carbon-carbon double bonds. Carbon-carbon double bonds always have 4 groups attached. 2 on one carbon, 2 attached to the other carbon. They're planar. They have 4 groups. This is sort of a generalized structure. You could imagine we could put all sorts of different combinations of groups into these circles. So for example, a hydrogen, a methyl, a hydrogen, an ethyl, and so forth. The number of carbon groups that are directly attached to the double bond carbons is called the degree of substitution of the double bond. So if a double bond has only one carbon group attached, so the rest are hydrogens, we would call that a monosubstituted double bond. And that would be the least substituted double bond. We could then have two carbon groups attached, either both on the same carbon or one on each carbon. That would be di-substituted. We could have three carbon groups attached. That would be tri-substituted. And the most substituted double bond has 4 carbon groups attached. When these reactions, E2 elimination reactions, were first studied, it was discovered experimentally that there was a pattern. And this pattern was discovered by a scientist named Zaitsev, who was a Russian scientist in roughly the 1860s in a university in central Russia. Now, one quick note about the name Zaitsev. So, because he was Russian, his name is actually spelled using a different alphabet, using Cyrillic, which is a Greek alphabet-derived alphabet. And the letters in that alphabet have slightly different pronunciations. So, in order to translate this into English, they had to translate first the letters and then try to approximate the pronunciations. But to complicate this also became translated in German, and the German letters have slightly different pronunciations from the equivalent English letters. The result of this is that there are at least 4 or 5 different ways of spelling this name. Our textbook, however, uses this spelling, and it's pronounced Zaitsev. Okay. However, you can also see it spelled with an S here, with F's on the end, with a Z right there. There's all different spellings, so just be aware. So, Zaitsev discovered when he did a number of these reactions that in general, he found the most substituted alkene was the preferred product of the reaction. So this is the equivalent reaction of the one that I showed as our example. We have a chlorine instead of a bromine, but if we treat that with strong base, we see that we get beta-2 carbon reacting, because when that happens, the alpha to beta double bond will have one carbon group on the former alpha and a carbon group on the former beta, right? So one carbon group, 2 carbon groups. It will be di-substituted. In contrast, if we were to make the double bond from beta-1, which is on the end, to alpha, then beta-1 would have 2 hydrogens and no carbon groups, and beta-2 would have an ethyl group, which, even though it is larger, would only count as 1 carbon group. So this is a very important point. The size of the carbon group generally does not matter. What is important is just whether it is a carbon group or not. So we call this Zaitsev's rule, and this would be considered the normal rule, the normal regioselectivity. However, it turns out later, another chemist, a man named Hofmann, who's a German chemist, he studied these and he experimented with different bases. And what he found was, if he used bases that were sterically hindered, so an example of this would be T-butyl O-, where the O- is the atom that's going to act as the base, but it has attached to it this very large and sterically hindered T-butyl group. It turns out that in that case, the base has a hard time reaching in to the more substituted beta carbon, which would give the more substituted beta product. So instead, it grabs a more accessible hydrogen from near the outside. That's generally going to be off of a less substituted beta, and that is going to create the less substituted double bond as the preferred product. So this is called the Hofmann product. The less substituted double bond is produced because the least hindered, i.e. least substituted, beta hydrogen is removed. And so this is the kind of thing that organic chemists really like to explore, because then they have control. Depending on which base they choose, they can put a double bond in one location or in the complementary location.